Welcome to another episode of Civic Cipher. I'm your host, Ramses Ja.
They call me Q Ward, and that just so happens to be my actual name, Ramses.
What's up?
What up, though?
Everything. Big week.
Massive week.
We made it.
Bro. Oh, man.
I know you was worried for a while.
I was waiting to exhale, bro.
Yeah, man.
like Angela Bassett. I was waiting.
Oh, man. So, yeah, man. The inauguration of America's 46th president, along with the star of the show, the first.
Well, there was multiple stars.
Well, you know, the main star. I'm talking about Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because our former first lady was a star as well.
Oh, yeah. She was doing.
I don't know if you saw what Shell was doing out here in the streets, bro. But she was a star as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, I definitely want to shout out a couple of people just because they worked really hard to make it happen. And I know they're listening to us today. So I wanted to say congratulations to Dr. Kamala Westenberg. I want to say congratulations to Janelle Wood. Those two, first and foremost, because they worked really hard out in the streets along with everyone else, but those are close friends of the show that were really concerned about, you know, the inauguration taking place and everything, and they worked really hard to see that come to fruition. So your efforts are appreciated by us younger folks, and we appreciate you, and thank you so much. But in the studio, we have a very special guest. Now, I'm going to tell a little story here. So, as many of you know, our show is based in Phoenix, and we live in Phoenix. And for those of you that have followed my story for any length of time, you know that, you know, I started in radio in 2005. Well, once upon a time, there was a friend of mine. His name was Bootleg Kev. Is Bootleg
Kev. You feel me?
So Kevin, I met Kev when he was 3 years old. I was 7, so we grew up together. That's my little brother forever. And once upon a time, we came across a CD, right? And this CD was by a guy named Atllas. And the name of the song was called Hood Famous. Now, the reason that stood out to Kevin, Bootleg Kev, at the time, he might have been 13, maybe 12, 13, somewhere in there. The reason he loved that CD so much is because that CD represented an independent album, you know, or single. I think I had a single, but it was independent. It was independent music being pressed on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona. Kevin loved it. He turned me on to it, and the song was dope. Hood Famous. I still know the melody. I still know bars. So that getting our hands on that piece of music really inspired me and Kevin to really make a go at the music industry and hopefully one day having music pay our bills, which is how we ended up getting into radio and getting up into DJing and so forth. But, you know, that was kind of part of the nexus, was coming across that CD. So the man behind that music, Atllas, you know, as these things go, he ended up becoming a real good friend of mine and becoming a real good friend of Civic Cipher. So this is, you know, maybe we're knocking on 20 years later, right? The thing is, Atllas, you know, grew up, as we all have. And Atllas had a little boy. And Atlas's little boy is making noise too. And we are very, very fortunate to have Atlas's son.
Not a little boy anymore.
Not at all. That's a grown man. But Atlas's son is with us in the studio, and his name is Atllas. How you doing, bro?
Doing good, and you?
I'm great, man. You got that powerful voice.
Listen, man.
All right, man. I like that. And you're not just in here to hang out with us. You're in here for a very special reason because, well, first I want to talk about your dad because I think that helps frame sort of what you're doing. Okay, so I know your dad is really into education. Obviously, the $1 Million Teacher Project is one of the sponsors for Civic Cipher. Not only that, Atllas is very influential when it comes to the Black agenda. He's a very powerful voice at least in the city where we live. But now that he has a national stage with the $1 Million Teacher Project, his voice carries even further. And he absolutely is motivated to see, obviously, a better world for all people. But, he, like many of us and many people listening to my voice right now, recognize that there are special issues and there are more there's more immediate threats, if you will, or hindrances to progress that are present in the Black community. So growing up with a father like that, it makes perfect sense to me that you would end up, exactly the way you are. So anyway, you're here to talk to us today about seed.
Yes.
So talk to the people. What's seed?
So initially, SEED stands for Students Engaged in Ethical Donations. And so what SEED is, it is the first youth giving circle within Arizona, but I'm pretty sure, we're all pretty sure that it's the first all Black youth giving circle within the United States, maybe even the world. And so essentially what that is, it's a bunch of African American males from the ages of 16 to 21. And they all pitch together through donations from within the organization and external donations from people who support us, just based off word of mouth or whatever the case may be. And we use those funds and we disperse it back into the community. We give out grants and other types of financial support towards organizations that are either student led or student based within Arizona.
So that to me sounds like a scholarship. Is it a scholarship or is it more than a scholarship?
I wouldn't say it's I guess you could kind of say it is like a scholarship in a way. The whole process kind of goes with the organization kind of presenting to us what they would exactly use the funds for, somewhat like an application for a scholarship.
Okay.
And then, we'll grant them the scholarship money. So yeah.
So it's a fund that you'll use to support like businesses or efforts or undertakings or
all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then why did you feel like this was important? Why did you create SEED?
So I created SEED because seeing my dad, as you mentioned, growing up around him and him being very for the people, it was just naturally just to be bestowed into me. And so throughout like my childhood, I've always been doing things such as like community service hours, where I'm at like a food bank, like donating food and packaging food packages and stuff like that. But as I grew older, and I kind of got a more mature sense of the world, I kind of noticed that even though the work that I was doing was good and was beneficial, it was on a small scale. And so I kind of realized that there are initiatives out there that are kind of pursuing change and are doing things to enable change, but may not have the necessary funds to do so. So instead of, me taking on the task myself of just, going out every Sunday to a homeless shelter and feeding those people, I realized, especially with my dad having his own nonprofit, that, money definitely goes a long way with nonprofits and other like justice type organizations. And so the whole premise behind it was just understanding that, instead of me, personally being out in the field doing it, me and a group of guys can just be in the background, be behind the curtains, and just run the show like that, and just kind of make our influence be felt within the community just by giving out the grants.
You are an inspiring person.
Thank you. I try my best.
How about that? How old are you?
I'm 19.
Huh.
You are leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at 19, young man.
So listen, on this show, we very much believe in community service. People that listen to us, obviously, will be able to make that connection just because of the format of the program here. But Q and I, we actually have a nonprofit, and we've put on an event for 10 years now, something like that.
This September will be year 9.
9 years. Okay.
Okay.
So knocking on 10 years. We're pretty close. And our nonprofit is called the Change Society, and we do an event monthly when it's when it's safe.
Yeah.
Called #lunchbag. So, that's something that we're really proud of. I think that we had an estimation that we had fed like 50,000 people or something in total.
In the organization that we're partnered with, Living Through Giving, based out of Los Angeles, California. Shouts to my boy AJ, who founded and started #lunchbag. Through our national and global partners, we're well over 1 million people fed.
Right.
Okay.
So, this is something that's kind of been in our hearts.
Yeah.
But I will say that if we started when we were 19, man, listen, that's a whole other level. So, I mean, I know that this is our first time sitting down together, but I will say that I'm proud of you. So, how do you see Seed growing? Like, what's, the growth potential for this project?
Yeah. So, within the first 5 years, I do want to stay local and just kind of build our kind of reputation around the community within Arizona. But immediately after that 5th year, right into the 6th year, I do want to start branching out towards, other states, because there are other organizations that operate there are other giving circles out there that would be eager to really connect with us and really any given circle. And so definitely just building our network and our connections globally, it would definitely be the next step. And that's perfect because, I'm only 19, and so I'll have 2 to 3 years left within the organization before I have to move on. And so within those 2 to 3 years, I can start working and kind of manifesting, building those connections outside of Arizona.
Okay. Very good. And I'm guessing that your dad helped you make Seed.
Yeah. So I'm a co-founder. The other co-founder, Jaden, he wasn't able to make it tonight, but both of our dads, they really helped us with the origination of Seed.
Okay. Awesome. Now, just so we're like a little bit more familiar, outside of Seed, what do you do? What are you involved in?
Yeah. So I am currently a sophomore at ASU. I'm majoring in architecture and real estate with a minor in business.
Go ahead.
And so there's that. I'm also I'm involved in Greek life. I'm the vice president of membership for my fraternity.
Shout out to your fraternity.
Sigma Tau Gamma at ASU, one of the best chapters on campus.
Let them know.
And besides that, kind of just schoolwork. I'm kind of into YouTube, so I somewhat have a YouTube channel going on.
Okay.
I work out, things like that, but that's about it.
Well, let's make sure that we plug you the right way. We got a full show to do, so if you will, hang out with us. But let's plug you the right way. So, where can people go to find out more about Seed, and where can people go to find out about you, like your YouTube and so forth?
For sure. So for Seed,
I'm assuming you need donation support, all that sort of stuff too. So make sure you ask for it, because we got to ask for it. So if you need money, hey, now's the time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So for Seed, we only have an Instagram right now. It is Seed Philanthropy. That's it. Within that Instagram account, you'll be able to see all of our members. You'll be able to keep up with us, keep updates with who we're supporting and things like that. And within our Instagram, within our bio, we have the link to our website. It's azreap.org/seed. And through that link, you'll be able to give us donations, or you can actually sign up and become a member if you or someone that will be interested in Seed. And for me personally, my Instagram is @SoldiersWorld, and my YouTube is KMT Soldier. Yeah.
Okay, and don't forget, money. Money is what we need to part with if we're going to empower and support properly these sorts of initiatives. We have to invest in the changes that we want to see. So Atllas is here. He's asking for your support. You hear my voice, you hear his voice. One more time, where can they find it?
You can find our donation link or member sign up link at azreap.org/seed, and anything really helps. It doesn't need to be $2,000, even though we would love $2,000. It could be $20 you found laying around, $10, $5, regardless of what it is. It doesn't go into my pockets or any of the members' pockets. It goes right back into the community, and we put it towards a great cause.
And that Instagram, one more time, was what?
Seed Philanthropy. And just straight out, no underscores, no numbers or anything like that.
Perfect. So at Seed Philanthropy on Instagram.
Yep.
Okay. So you heard it again.
Seed Philanthropy on Instagram.
Support, okay.
I hope y'all paying attention to how polished this young man is.
Man, he's doing his thing, man. This is our first time sitting together. I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of you. Please keep going, man. That makes my heart happy.
If I find the time machine, I'm taking Atllas with me back to when I was his age. So getting together.
I need friends like you. So yeah, once again, if you're just tuning in to Civic Cipher, I'm your host Ramses. Ja.
They call me Q Ward.
And another thing that we wanted to talk about, you don't mind hanging out with us, do you, Atllas?
Oh no.
Okay. Yeah. Another thing we wanted to talk about was this week. I want to start because I want you, Q, to talk to me about the inauguration because I didn't get to see it, and this is our first time kind of going over it. But I do want to say this. This will be the last time I say
amen.
This name.
Amen.
If God is with me, if nothing else happens, this will be the last time I say it on purpose, okay? I work in media. I've worked in media since I graduated from college. I worked in media for 16 years now. Been on the radio that long. We have a responsibility to the truth. We have a responsibility to report, even though I've worked in hip hop formats and, done that sort of a thing. When you have a platform and your voice, reaches lots of people, there's a fundamental responsibility there. We're all in agreement there. Yes.
Yes.
But also with that comes the acknowledgement that there's some power. You can shape the narrative. It can be true, but you can put your own spin on it. Yes, and I think that we can see that happening in all media formats. Yeah. So far be it from me to tell anyone else how to do what it is that they do. To have a platform and to have a voice that carries and people that tune in every week, that's a gift. It's not one that I take lightly. But for me, for this show, I think that this will be the last time that I talk about Donald Trump. Unless something else crazy happens, I feel like giving power to that evil continues to drag his name into now is our future. This is the future that we hope for. So I'm calling it. This is the future. So we don't need the past, especially that part of it, in the future. Now, I recognize that was something we had to grow through, everything in context. But in terms of just picking on him, I'm not a buzzard. So, that's dead. I'm going to let that be dead. But with that said, where we are right now, we have to understand what happened to fully appreciate what's happening or what has happened at the inauguration. So this is my commitment. For those of you that follow me on Facebook, you might have seen me talk about that earlier in the week, or however it goes. But I think that, there's a lot of us that, really feel like that past administration was toxic. That's putting it mildly.
To say the least.
I broke my own rules, because I said, we got to everything, in moderation and context. You're not supposed to block people just because they have different political opinions from you. You have to teach them. You have to grow with them. They're still your brothers and your sisters, your countrymen. You have to share, you have to share time and space with these people.
No, I'm not about to let you go out like that.
Listen, man, I done blocked like 4 or 5 people already this week.
Yeah. And we talked about this on the show before. You were not blocking those people because they voted Republican and you voted Democrat.
No, that was
because we have a lot of friends over our entire adult lives that have done that, and it hasn't been an issue because we just had differences in political beliefs.
Yeah,
this was different,
very different.
And if you can't acknowledge that this was different, it's because there's something in yourself that you're ashamed to admit, so you rather fight with us on it. This was not about politics. This was about basic human decency, humanity, and bigotry and racism.
And I think that we said it best when we had that episode that in this instance and in all instances, but your politics is a reflection of your morals and your character, you know, and they don't have to necessarily be in alignment with mine, but if they stand in contrast to mine, if your political ideology is rooted in my subjugation or the subjugation of my brothers and sisters from, you know, of Mexican descent or whatever, you know, we could slice this pie 100 ways, then you know, I think that's a reflection of your character. And so yes, my block button absolutely works, and I had the chance to exercise it a few times this week. But with that said, that's enough empowering the past. I would like to know what your thoughts were of the inauguration. Q Ward.
I had some unexpected joy today.
Talk to me.
So, and there might be some people that share this opinion, but I know that I didn't jump up and down when Joe Biden became the candidate who I was going to have to vote for.
I don't think that was what he was for.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And I've been very much against, and I didn't realize it until today, you know, once again, watching another inauguration, but this time, for the first time as a father, with both of my mixed children. It was just a different experience than I expected. I did not expect to be overjoyed today, because in the year of George Floyd, there's some discouraging truths in the idea that as the world was watching, as the microscope was on us, and as we were garnering levels of empathy and participation from our allies that in my lifetime I had not seen before, I was kind of disappointed that there's some parts of my mind that say this is as good as it's going to get and this isn't good enough. Like, the most sympathy you get from your mom, from your girlfriend, from your friends are like right after you just got beat up. Right?
Yeah.
Your girlfriend hugs you tight. Your mom puts some ice on it, gonna make your favorite meal. You know what I mean? Like, the people that care about you. And that was funny, but I didn't mean it to be. But when you're sick, when you're down, when you're at the bottom, the people that care give you the most sympathy. You know, I had meningitis years ago. I got messages from people that I realized they love me because of how they responded to me being in peril.
Yeah.
George Floyd's murder and the visual of him being murdered caused a lot of people who otherwise have made excuses or justified or whatever their reasoning was to respond in a different way. And that's why you might have saw the largest global civil rights movement ever. Right? That his murder was a catalyst for that. Mm-hmm. However, you look around today, you look around to, you know, a couple of Wednesdays ago, and you're like, wow. Even as you continue to see our brothers and sisters being shot and murdered and beat for looking like us, and that being the reason, something in me said, man, like, even after that, this is still like, it's still this, because it doesn't get better. Like, once I got back healthy, I wasn't getting the same amount of text. I wasn't getting the same amount of phone calls.
I was still calling you.
Of course you were, but you know, that as people see you recharge and get back strong, it's like, okay, he good now.
Yeah.
Right. So as soon as we start smiling and start walking back up, right? Oh, they good now. Mm-hmm. That sympathy, that empathy, that participation, those allies, they fade. And it's like, man, in the year of George Floyd, like the summer of George Floyd just having passed, you know, this inauguration just having passed, and our first, the first black woman to hold office in the White House. The first woman to hold office in the White House was a black woman. Mm-hmm. Super powerful. As I'm holding my mixed black daughter in my arms, I'm feeling real proud dad as I'm watching that. But I was prepared to be discouraged by all these things, and then Joe started talking, and Joe started saying things. Please forgive me. The president started saying things. I'll never call you Joe again, President Biden, if you're hearing me. President Biden started to say the things that our nation absolutely needed to hear, but that I was certain that I didn't want to hear, right? About working together with them, about unifying, about, and I'm like, what's with this meet me in the middle stuff?
Yeah.
They just showed us year after year, month after month, week after week, day after day. They don't care about us. They would rather see us die than disrupt, than to make life inconvenient for them. Why are we going to such lengths to extend these olive branches and work with these people who 14, 16 days ago would have tried to kill you if they could?
Actively.
Right? Except I realized as he kept saying it, it wasn't just like a part of his speech. This is how this man really feels, that that's what we need. The opposite of Donald Trump would not have been for President Biden to say the exact same things, except on our side.
Yeah.
To have that same divisive rhetoric, to have that same us against them mentality that I wanted him to have that, though. I wanted him to be juiced up and ready for as much smoke as possible until I realized I was being a hypocrite.
Yeah.
I was just like those people who, in their minds, justifiably stormed the Capitol because they were being wronged. I was essentially saying, well, no, we should storm the Capitol now because we were wronged. And President Biden is saying over and over again, like, we should all be done with that mess, that nonsense, and that toxicity, because there is no way forward not together. If he kept that same energy just with the other point of view, 4 years later, we'd still be sitting in the same spot.
Yeah.
So, and then our sisters showed out. Vice President Harris showed out. Our former first lady, our forever first lady, Michelle Obama, she showed out, bro. And then I want to make sure I'm saying this young lady's name correctly, because Amanda Gorman, the brilliant poet laureate who did the inaugural poem today, showed out. So these brilliant queens, again, as I'm holding my little girl, I was overjoyed. I drove over here singing. Wasn't no music on in my car, and I wasn't singing out loud, but I was rocking. Like I drove to the studio in that same spirit, carrying that same energy, because we discourage ourselves from being happy because we're waiting on the other shoe to fall. Don't even get too excited, because I've heard a lot of he's just like every other politician talk. I've heard a lot of, all of the things on his agenda won't be done. Of course they won't. That's how our government has always worked. Let's be honest about that. But having the right ideals, even if you can't execute the plan, matters. Wanting to unite us and push us all forward for the better of everybody is how you're supposed to feel, whether or not you're filibustered or whether or not you're able to carry out every bullet point on your agenda. The intention matters. The desire to matters.
It sets the cultural tone.
Yeah, the whole thing was very, very positive, full of joy, full of love, and full of the energy to unite us. I'm hoping that he doesn't get the same pushback that I wanted him to give them before I started watching the inauguration.
Well, the good news is that, as divisive as the previous administration was, it really galvanized a lot of us. Independents, of course, liberals and conservatives, even. The Lincoln, was it the Lincoln Project or whatever? It was a bunch of Republicans that were like, "Yo, this dude is not. He does not represent Republican ideals, so we're voting against him, or we're voting so that he can, we can unseat him." Galvanized us, got us all on the same page, and here we are. So, it's amazing what we can accomplish when we do come together. And another result of that is that now there's a Democratic leaning House of Representatives, as well as a Democratic leaning Senate. So that's all three major branches of, or there's still the Supreme Court. But, there's ways around that too if people wanted to really get in there and do the most, which is something that I probably would do if I was in that place, because, that's just such a scary thing to have gone through as a country, just to know that these people that, a lot of people are going to take issue with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it how I say it. These people that, bless their heart, are given to fear. They think that their world is changing, that they're going to lose, or somehow, they think the world is as black and white as it is in their mind. If you do this, then this. If you do that, then that. Everything else is just what it is. And that static world to them makes sense. And, the previous administration was able to speak to their fears and so forth, and tap into that fear and rile them up against decency, standards, their countrymen, and you just gave them everything that they needed. And so, I've said it before on the show, I do feel bad for the people that kind of fell into that. I know how, now that I'm older, now that I've traveled the country, I've talked to these people, obviously in order to be in this position, I can't just be in here like, yeah, so this is my way and that's the way it is. Well, I can, but that's not really the right way to do this type of show, so, I always hold a little bit of space for forgiveness, and there's a seat at the table for people that don't agree with me, provided that we can all be respectful. But, this previous administration, it's like getting out of an abusive relationship. You know what I mean? It's like, we're like, oof, just anything that's not that. So, absolutely. And it was important that we recorded the show today. Normally we record the show, at airtime, but we had to record it today just because.
I reached out and I'm like, listen, first of all, I saw a movie yesterday that had me in my emotional space. Mm-hmm. Right. I saw it for the third time yesterday, by the way. I called you and told you that. And then after how I was feeling after I watched the inauguration, I'm like, bro, we got to talk like now. I need a microphone on like earlier.
Yeah. So forgive,
like 2 hours ago.
So forgive the delay in receiving this message, but yeah, that brings me to the next part of it. Which, by the way, if you're just tuning in to Civic Cipher, I'm your host Ramses Ja.
They call me Q Ward, and shout out to our esteemed guest. Like, I might start looking up to this kid, and he's a full decade and some change younger than me. The young scholar, Mr. Atllas.
Yes, sir. But. Well, before we move on, because I do want to talk about the movie. In fact, that's part of the reason why we needed to sit down today. Atllas, did you get a chance to take anything in from the inauguration? Did it,
Yeah. So sadly, I had class today, so I wasn't able to watch the full thing, but I was able to see a few highlights and all that. Okay. And my initial takeaways, I'm really not like a huge politics guy. I do find it important, but you won't see me watching CNN 24/7 or anything like that.
You got to go to school.
Yeah. But one of my main takeaways from that was definitely seeing Kamala Harris up there. Just because I guess for me personally, I kind of cemented the idea that at this point or at this rate, really anything is possible. For our people. Very good. I really hope that my younger sister, my younger cousins, they probably weren't watching, but hopefully they see her when they get older as an example that, growing up in a world where people say you really can't do anything, you can't do this, you can't do that. They see her as an example as, well, they're all wrong. You can do whatever you put your mind to.
Absolutely.
And definitely seeing Kamala Harris up on stage, solidified the idea that, not even that, but kind of just, strengthens the notions of enabling us as a people. Kamala Harris is a product of, Martin Luther King and all of our grandparents fighting for our rights way back in the day. Kamala Harris is a product of even the horrible things that are happening before then and that lead up to today. And Kamala Harris is, in a way, not to brag about seed, but Kamala Harris kind of like solidifies the idea of seed actually being a thing. You know, just like you wouldn't expect, you know, a 19-year-old African American, you know, college kid to do something like this, or even a high schooler and a co-founder doing something like this. But I mean, against all odds, and in a world where we are marginalized, you know, they're still trying to find a way to actually make their voice heard and make their impact the way that they want to. So I found that part about it specifically powerful.
Couple things. You should always brag about seed.
Listen,
this is the place for that.
I almost knocked both of y'all over to say that.
You should
If you don't brag about seed, we're going to, but you absolutely should.
We're very proud of you.
Absolutely.
Which, one more time, how can people support Seed? Where can they find out more information?
Right now, we only have an Instagram account. It is at Seed Philanthropy on Instagram. There is no underscores, no numbers, nothing like that. Just Seed straight out. Our website is azreap.org/seed. On that website, you can either donate to us, anything helps, or you can become a member if you know a cousin, a nephew, a son that you feel would be a good fit for the program, or you feel like he would benefit a lot for the program. We're always taking new members. So that is azreap.org/seed for our website, and Seed Philanthropy on Instagram for our actual account.
Absolutely. And the main thing that Seed is in need of is money.
Yes.
Invest in the future. All right. So
especially that kind of future.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So shifting gears a little bit. Q Ward, you wanted me to watch a movie because I have sons. Let's talk about this movie.
Yes, please. Let's.
So the name of the movie is American Skin. And I recognize that maybe some folks haven't seen it yet. I know it's not a new movie, but the way that the world is right now.
Actually, it was in festivals a little bit ago, but it's new to the normal viewer or consumer. It just became available a few days ago.
Okay, so but I'm saying, like, it's not like today's the days. Like, you know, so some people might have already been able to watch
yes,
it.
sir. Yes.
So, but there's a lot of people that may not have been able to watch it yet. So I'm going to do my best to tell you what the movie's about without giving away any spoilers. But basically, it is a story. This is a work of fiction. And it chronicles, it's like documentary style filming, but it chronicles a man who was pulled over for a traffic stop. He had his 14-year-old son in the car with him. I have a 15-year-old son, so this is why Q wanted me to watch it, right? And like, I cried probably 6 times during the movie. So this is tough, man, because you know you can see a lot of stuff, and you know. Anyway, so it's a traffic stop. You know, we all know the story. Traffic stop. You know, you got to reach in the glove box. You know, do this and the third. The officer gets scared. Little kid ends up getting shot. So this man sees his son get shot in the street, and you know, everything that comes after that. The city is looking to, you know, or rather the people are looking to get a conviction, like a murder conviction from, you know, this child's murder.
At the very least, to have charges brought against the officer who murdered the young man.
Right. And when that doesn't happen, the father ultimately, I'm giving you the real quick and dirty version of the movie. You really have to watch it. Again, American Skin. But after the verdict comes back and that the officer won't be charged, the father decides that he's going to take the police hostage, and he does it. He actually does it, and then he liberates, temporarily at least, some folks in the jail that are on the premises, and conducts a fair trial. And the prisoners and, you know, some normal folks that happen to be at the police station at the time, they serve as the jury. The officer who shot his son is the accused. and another police officer defends that officer, working as a lawyer. And, they have a secondary trial. And, the rest of the story plays out. And so what we end up seeing is what that looks like from both sides. And one thing that I thought was very important about this movie is that it really, if you don't know what it's like to live in fear of the police, it helps you to see what life is like living in fear of the police. If you don't know what it's like to feel like you have no voice at the table, you just have to kind of take everything on the chin. It helps to explain what that's like. A lot of people, they feel like they can talk back to the police. A lot of people feel like, well, I'm entitled to my dignity. That's not something that black people have, as standard in this country. Dignity goes right out the window. What do you need, officer? Okay, you want me to, what did Dave Chappelle say? Spread my cheeks and lift my sack. Yes, sir. Because it's a matter of life and death. But this movie kind of helps, provide a window into what that experience is like. But another thing this movie does is it gives a voice to the officers. And, no matter what your persuasion is, on this side of the argument of Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, as if there was such a thing perpetuated by us on our end, the Black Lives Matter folks, for those who are unclear, it helps to know what it is that the officers go through as well. One thing that I will say, and you know me, you listen to me every week, and if you don't, you probably know me anyway. You might know me from TV or something else, but I'm a good person. But one thing that I'll never not be is black. If you've ever seen me, you've seen my hair, and that speaks volumes. I got a big old afro, so do my babies, and that's deliberate. I wear it on TV, it's on the billboards, it's on the magazines, everywhere I go. Except for that one time when I had it straightened. You didn't like that.
Yeah, you was rocking the Princey Kravitz.
But, again, it's important to know that, there's another side to this. There are people who, they do wake up, they put on a uniform, they, go out there and they feel like what they're doing is making a difference. Their job is to protect the good guys from the bad guys, as it were. You can't see the forest from the trees, so it's very difficult to see a broken system when you're in it and it appears to be working from your vantage point. Your motivation, therefore, is to defend it because it's this person was bad, that person was bad. This is a casualty. That's the cost of this thing that we're doing. In fact, they talked about that in the film. There's this opinion that, in the movie it explores it, that black people are constantly reaching for things to spin a narrative to make everyone else the problem except for black people. And the film discusses that, and for those of us that know, for those of us who've been educated, for those of us who know our history and understand how things came to be, we didn't just click on in 1990 or 1985 or whenever we were born. We've done the research and we've seen that the world was not always like this, that things like mass incarceration, things that were perpetuated or initiated by our own government that have disproportionately affected black people, from housing to from the 13th Amendment to redlining to, crack in the 80s and mass incarceration and so forth, that know the history of it. There's things that were done to black people specifically. Those are things, there were things discussed in the movie that made me want to throw up in my mouth, but I needed to hear them because I understand now, and I did, but, to see the dramatization of it, that people really feel that way. These people have no idea. They really do think, okay, you guys are just horrible people, and if you stop being horrible people, then all these problems will stop happening. Which is exceptionally short-sighted, but it's fair if that's all you know. And the thing is, if you come to the table with a little bit of compassion as a black man, and you understand, okay, my brother doesn't know as much as I do. My Caucasian brother doesn't know as much as I do. And there was a Hispanic man in the movie too, and he was super cop. He was like copped out. Did you see the part? All right, I'm gonna spoil this.
He was Mississippi State Trooper cop.
Yeah, like that. Okay, for those of you that listen to the show, you might get that reference when me and Q got pulled over in Mississippi. And
you have to warn people if you're gonna spoil a movie they haven't seen. You gotta like.
Okay, I'll just speak around it. But there's a scene where this Hispanic officer talks to an inmate who's also Hispanic, right? And the inmate was speaking Spanish, and my Spanish,
no subtitles too. That's important.
None. You could not hear what you could. If you don't speak Spanish, you can't understand. Fortunately, I can speak a little bit of Spanish, so I got
un poquito,
un poco. Sí, pero I understood a little bit about what he was saying, right? But it didn't matter because the tone never lost his cool. And you see the officer get so upset and so riled up. He's like, you think you're better than me? This and that and that. And so this movie really tackles how two people can be in the same race and on two different sides of the same issue, which speaks to the institutional nature of the racism, not the racism per se, right? This is not spoiling anything, but the captain of the police force was black. And so a lot of the officers felt like, well, the captain's black, so it's impossible for us to be racist. We work with this guy every day. We love this guy. You know what I mean? And you can see that there's a disconnect between, them living their life and the real world, the real people that are affected by the decisions that they make. And so this film did an excellent job of telling a story beginning to end from both sides. Now, obviously, the film it's written and directed by a black person, so that's going to be present in the film. You're gonna see that it's from a black perspective, and it's a black story. We all know that. We see it played out on CNN and on our cell phones every few weeks when someone else is murdered in the streets, and those are just the stories we hear about. But it speaks to the fear that this country has when interacting with black people, black men especially. There's just fear there, and even though there's nothing to be afraid of, it's just built into the conversation. So people can make decisions based on a fear that's rooted in racism, and these people don't see the connection from their behavior to racism. But those of us on this side can absolutely see it. There's no reason to be afraid. I'm a man with a beating heart, same as you. I want to go home to my babies, and you get to go home to your babies. And so, this isn't just an endorsement of the film, although it is definitely that. You should definitely watch American Skin. I don't know if it's free yet, but pay for it. Support this man. He made the movie himself. I think it was produced?
Written, directed, and starring Nate Parker.
Okay, and Spike Lee did something.
Spike Lee is definitely one of the producers partnered up with Nate. Please, I don't want to cut you off.
No. So here is where I want to shift, because my understanding is that this film has received some. There's been an issue with how the film has been received, and I think you can speak to that.
So before speaking to that, I want to kind of piggyback off of what you said.
Sure.
Again, this is Civic Cipher with the esteemed Ramses Ja.
Ooh, thank you.
They call me Q Ward, and that just so happens to be the name my mama gave me. My mom is typically in here watching this. I'm surprised that she's not at some point. I'm sure she will be, because she be on Ramses' case. And I got my young scholar over here, Atllas. Say what's up to the people.
What's going on, Atllas Hopkins?
The idea that they fear us, bro. I know how I behave when I'm afraid.
Yeah.
And I know how we were treated by those officers in the middle of the night in Mississippi on the side of the highway.
Oh, that was one time in our life. Happens all the time.
That's not how I treat people when I'm afraid of them.
Yeah,
You get what I'm saying? I think fear is a very convenient excuse to explain why you just killed something, right? I was afraid that it was going to kill me, so it's now justified. But I know how, like, I'm afraid of my mother. I know how I still. I'm super grown. I'm scared that if her tone twitch a little bit, I'm scared. Like literally physically afraid. Right? So I know how fear causes me to respond.
Sure.
And they don't respond to us like they're afraid of us. They respond to us like they're intolerable, like they're fed up, like the way exterminators treat rodents. When you call the exterminator to come to your house, they're not afraid of them. They're going to get rid of them without prejudice.
Wow.
That's how they treat us. Not like they're scared of us. Like if we went on a safari in Africa, we was in a truck with no ropes, no bars, no, and a lion walked up and we were afraid. You know what I'm saying? That fear is different.
Yeah.
I think that's just a very, very convenient excuse for them to justify the attempt at extermination. And that might sound like extreme language, but watch the videos that get posted every few days. Right? It's hard to fear the man running away from you, or hard to explain that that's fear. If you've seen the trailer for this movie, American Skin, written, directed, starring Nate Parker, when you watch the trailer, even in the trailer, you see that his son is retreating from the officer. It's hard to tell me that you were scared of that kid. Besides the fact that he was 14, beside the fact that you already know that it's a cell phone and not a gun, because he tried to say he might have been reaching for a gun, but you already know it's not. Besides those obvious truths, he's retreating from you. So it is very, very hard to convince me that that was out of fear. Right? Your job is to protect and serve, but who? Like in this country, our military and our police are voluntary. People are not drafted into these positions, right? So if you sign up to protect and serve, it's to protect and serve the citizens, not yourself and each other. Because you hear that as justification too. I wanted to make it home to my family, and those officers are in such a dangerous job. They signed up for that job. Their lives on the line to protect ours is the whole point. So you're going to murder me so that you can go home. I'm unarmed on my phone. You're the trained officer with the weapon. So kind of miss me a little bit with your fear. You were asking me about the way that the movie was rated and received. I'm sorry for that rant, but
can I, before we get there,
some of that stuff triggers me, man.
No, go ahead.
The fear stuff.
So talk about the ratings, how it was received.
No, what's up?
So, all right, I'll speak on it. Well, first then, if I'm going to talk, I'm going to say this. Fear, super convenient, but you're absolutely right, Q. It doesn't tell the whole story. Fear with a gun, fear plus a gun plus a lack of respect for black life.
A lack of empathy.
Sure. And, I think that a lot of times there's, you become like to a man with a hammer, the world becomes a nail, or everything in the world becomes a nail, or something like that. If you end up telling yourself a story that everybody needs to obey you because you're the authority, as soon as people don't do things exactly the way that you want, then, you end up, your ego is bruised and you need to prove a point, or whatever the story is, and you just end up being bullies, and that's what it is. And people pay with their lives because you have a God complex and a gun. So this is something that we do know, and it's more than fear, but it's very much rooted in that, because you don't grab your gun until you're afraid, generally speaking, or until you feel disrespected. You know what I mean?
Unless when you arrived as the exterminator,
you go, okay.
You arrived with the intent to exterminate.
Now, let me say this before we get out of here.
I need about 45 seconds to speak on that rating before we get out of here, too.
Of course. That's what we're going to talk about. But I saw a video today. This was from Tucson, Arizona. And there was a woman who walked into a Los Ventana Canyon Resort in Tucson. I actually been to this place. She walked in and sat down in the lobby, and there was a white lady next to her who didn't like her sitting there. So asked her to move. You know, it was a little bit of back and forth, but nothing crazy. The woman got up, walked to another table, sat at the other table. The woman was still upset because the black lady didn't leave. So she called the police. The police came, took the black lady out in handcuffs. And the whole time, you can see on the video, the white woman, she's older, Karen, screaming, belligerent. She's been drinking. Of course, she's been hanging out down there, whatever. Just didn't like the fact that there was a black woman in there spoiling her fun. Police came and they take the black woman away. And the crazy part about it is the police were there asking what happened, or asking witnesses, everything. What's happening? Somehow, these police were convinced that this black woman was the instigator. This black woman was the threat, needed to be handcuffed, and then escorted away. Spend the night in jail. So with any luck, I'll be able to get her on the show so she can tell her story. But in the meantime, we don't rock with Los Ventana Canyon Resort in Tucson. And if you do, then you're supporting racist administration, racist staff, and racist behavior. And I think that very much speaks to this culture of fear that surrounds black people, that is oftentimes the nexus of these behaviors that end up being so drastic, you know, taken on by the police and ultimately criminal justice system, which is why this film was so important. The thing is, this film is the sort of thing that I want to make sure that we support. I want people to watch it. I want people to talk about it, because these are things that can happen in your world, on your time, you know, at your comfort level, and then you can have a conversation about it with your friends. The thing is, the reason this film needs your help is because we've found that there's some people working against the way that the film's being rated. So in brief, what does that look like to you? So I'm sure you guys are familiar with the movie rating website Rotten Tomatoes. I have to, in full disclosure, admit that typically when I'm looking to see what movie I want to see next, the Rotten Tomatoes score kind of gives me an idea of whether or not I'm going to invest my money and my time in seeing said film. And the Rotten Tomatoes scores for the movie American Skin were and are bad per the critics on the website. It's an incredible movie. Except the movie isn't just good, like, oh, that was cool. The movie's amazing. So then I was confused. So I go on to Rotten Tomatoes. 13 white men reviewed this movie. No women, no minorities. Watch the movie, American Skin. It's on Amazon Prime, iTunes. A bunch of different streaming services have it, but you have to buy it. So support this movie. See this movie. It's important and it's powerful. And then go to Rotten Tomatoes and rate it. That part. And with that said, we'll get out of here. So be sure to check out the website, civiccipher.com, to recap this and any previous shows. Of course, you can donate. We need your donations. The show is growing all the time. There's growth opportunities. We can take advantage of them with your support, fiscal support. One more time, Atllas, let everybody know how they can support you as well.
Yes, sir. So Atllas Hopkins, of course. You can follow us first at C Philanthropy on Instagram. For sure, refer to our website at azreap.org/C to support us with donations or anything like that.
All right, y'all. And we'll see you next week right here on Civic Cipher.